Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of February 26, 2013. I'd like to thank the Garden Club for the flowers they always provide for our meetings. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Salazar.
Here.
Vice Mayor O'Connell. Here. Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Here.
Carol, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, announcements. I would like to inform the council and the public that we were a host last week on President's Day and the day after to Ed Pulowski and Linda Farrell. Ed is the mayor of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And in 2011, he also suffered a very tragic explosion, gas explosion in his city. He lost 5 people, blew up a whole city block. And a little different than ours for different reasons, but in any case, he was asked in December at the United States Conference of Mayors in Washington, D.C. by the Mayor of Philadelphia, Mr. Nutter, to set up a U.S. Conference of Mayors Council on Pipeline Safety. And he asked us to be an integral part of that. He flew out last week, and we had a long meeting with him on Tuesday. Monday, we visited a high-tech facility in the South Bay that specializes in gas detection, and we're trying to do this from a grassroots level, mayoral level, around the United States. So we're going to be very, very involved in that, and I wanted to let you know that. It was very interesting. Presentations. We don't have any presentations this evening. Review of the agenda. Everybody okay with the agenda? Item number 6, approval of the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of February 12, 2013, and special City Council meeting of February 20th, 2013, and special City Council and Planning Commission meeting of February 20th, 2013. Any errors, corrections, omissions? Seeing none, they'll stand approved as submitted. Item number 7, consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implement an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, citizen, or staff. Any action on the consent calendar?
Through the chair, if there's no discussion, I'll move to approve. Second.
Motion is second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 8, public hearings. There are no public hearings this evening. Item number 9, public comment on items not on the agenda. It is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to address the council on items not on this agenda? All right, seeing none. Move right into 10. Item number 10A is something we've been looking forward to for a very, very long time. Select a development team and authorize the city manager to enter into an exclusive negotiating rights agreement and commence negotiations of a disposition and development agreement for the Crossings Hotel. I'm going to give it to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It is indeed a very great pleasure tonight to be in the position to recommend, to bring you this report and to recommend the next important step towards the city and our community, realizing the vision we have long held for the development of a high-quality hotel to complete the build-out of the Crossing San Bruno specific site area. Our report tonight will cover a number of important topics and will include 3 separate speakers. Myself, I will give you an overview of a number of important topics related to the action item that we're proposing for your consideration tonight. Jason Moody, to my right, will give who is with Economic Planning Systems, a consultant to the city who has done extensive economic analysis of many hotel proposals that we have evaluated over the course of the last couple of years. And thirdly, representatives from OTO Development are in the audience tonight, and we would like to give them an opportunity to present to you and to the public themselves, their firm, and the vision that they have to proceed further with us towards the development of a hotel. As we will discuss in further detail through the presentations tonight, the action that's proposed tonight is a next important step towards realizing the vision that the City Council and the community have long held for over a decade, in fact, for build-out of the crossing site and the specific plan. This is by far not the last step in this process, but it is, in fact, a very important next step. In some respects, as a colleague of mine suggested earlier today, tonight's action could, in fact, be considered largely ceremonial in that it marks the beginning of the next phase in this process, but by far, again, does not conclude it. Where we are now, we can clearly see the end of the process and the reality of a hotel that meets our community vision. That vision has a number of components, as I will discuss later in my remarks. It includes general fund revenue that may be derived from transient occupancy tax that could support a variety of routine and special municipal activities. It includes, importantly, space in a high-quality hotel for meetings, for conferences, for family events, a much-needed amenity that this community lacks in large measure. And it includes the vision of a high-quality physical amenity, as I indicated before, to complete the development of that important area of our city that we call the Crossing San Bruno. The action that's proposed tonight is specifically to authorize the initiation of negotiations with a preferred development team that has been selected and is being recommended to you tonight based on an extensive review, evaluation, and competitive proposal solicitation process that the city staff, in conjunction with a subcommittee of the City Council, has engaged over the last several months. I'll speak to some of the additional details in a moment. This action is only and specifically a selection of the best developer or development team for this project. It is not an approval or even a consideration of the best deal for the city. There's no deal, in fact, on the table tonight. We, the city, our consultants, and the development teams that participated in our solicitation and review process, none of us have enough information at this time to determine the detailed, specific financial aspects of a deal at this point in time. The developers who participated have given us their best guess and preliminary assessments of the financial considerations that will need to be reviewed, evaluated, and discussed in great detail. But again, their economics and their preliminary proposals do not represent a deal. That deal comes next, and what we are proposing to you tonight is that you authorize us to begin the process of the negotiations that would result in that deal. That deal would come back to you, and you will have the opportunity, assuming that we proceed, you will have the opportunity to do your own detailed evaluation, consideration of the community's interests, and to make further specific approval of that deal and the deal points. So I'm going to take a step backwards here for a moment and do a short review of the history of the site and the process that we used to reach the action that we're proposing to you tonight. In the late 1990s, the city had what I consider to be the considerable foresight to identify an opportunity when the federal government decided to surplus and auction the site that is now the Crossing San Bruno. Approximate 20-acre site was surplused, and the city recognized at that time that this piece of property had the opportunity to produce a wide variety of amenities and important amenities for the future of the San Bruno community. The city prepared a specific plan to identify specifically what development was of interest to the community, how that development should be planned, how it should be implemented, how it should be phased. That plan envisioned a full-service hotel as one of the key amenities at the corner of El Camino Real, adjacent to Highway 380. In the mid-2000s, as the development of the site had been proceeding rapidly and the hotel market conditions had continued to be stagnant in the post-9/11 environment, the city identified that it had yet another opportunity to avoid just simply sitting around waiting for the market to improve adequately, that we could get to the point where we are tonight. And in expediting that vision, the city was able to identify a developer and to assist in the development of the high-quality fine dining restaurant that we all now enjoy, Jack's at the Crossing. Today's vision for a hotel was developed over the past several years, as I mentioned, in the post-9/11 environment as the hotel market continued stagnant. The city pursued its vision by working with hotel industry experts to evaluate the best type of project that we were waiting for. What was it that would best suit that site and could best be matched to the city's vision for a hotel project? While our specific plan had previously specified a up to 500-room hotel with a full restaurant and the other amenities of a very large full-service hotel, our subsequent analysis identified that the best product for that site in the not exactly short term, but in the reasonable term, was what's known in the industry as a select service hotel. That is a hotel that we will be talking about in greater detail tonight, so I won't spend the time to describe exactly what that hotel, with the type of amenities that it includes and what it looks like. The city, in order to set the stage and to develop the groundwork that would be necessary to work towards soliciting developer interest in that site and in that type of a project, the city next moved in July of 2012 to purchase the site, the footprint, the empty lot that had sat vacant for approximately a dozen years as the Crossing site developed. We purchased that site for $1.4 million in one-time resources, and the purpose of that purchase was to assure that the city, not the previous property owner or any other entity, would have the ability to control and to manage the schedule and the selection of the developer that would ultimately build out the vision. We next moved as part of the City Council's direction to proceed in taking advantage of improving market conditions that have occurred over the past approximately 18 to 24 months. In October of 2012, to issuance of a request for proposals and qualifications to the hotel development community with the intent that to solicit proposals to design, finance, and build a hotel. That hotel, as I indicated, would be of the select service type with at least, and these are the requirements that we specified in our request for proposals, at least 120 guest rooms, suite type rooms, and importantly, at least 3,000 square feet of meeting space that would be able to, could be configured to seat at least 200 people in banquet style arrangement. Again, this being a key part of the vision that the city has long held. As a select service product, this type of hotel might or might not include either on-site or off-site visitor services, including fitness or spa facilities. And it was specifically our intent that with Jack's Restaurant next door, the nearby restaurant would provide the opportunity of a full-service amenity, although not incorporated directly in a full-service type hotel product. The developer proposals process requested very specific information from the development community, and our RFP, RFQ was circulated to over 24 potentially qualified development teams in and around this market area. On the slide, the number of specific components that we requested be provided included the team's qualifications and experience in developing similar types of hotels, financial capacity, the project concept that was of most interest to the development team, and any considerations that they might have regarding entry into an exclusive negotiations with the City of San Bruno. The city was extremely pleased, and our hotel industry experts suggested to us that we did in fact receive a very strong response to our request for proposals. We received a total of 5 proposals, and we know that there were a number of companies that looked at this particular opportunity and who had some conversations with us. But in general, the 5 proposals that we received all demonstrated some level of important strength. They all attracted our specific attention, and all of them received a very extensive review. Again, these were all companies who have significant hotel development, many of them also hotel operations experience. And again, while there were significant similarities among the various proposals that we received from the 5 companies, there were also some compelling differences. And that was the basis of our evaluation, was a careful review of the details of each of those proposals. We looked very, very carefully, and in fact, we went 2 rounds with the development teams and are actually about 30 days, maybe a little bit longer, behind the schedule that we had originally planned to get back to you with the recommendations to enter, with a recommendation to enter exclusive negotiations, because we wanted to make sure that we were actually comparing apples to apples, or like products and like information to like information, and that we didn't have significant disparities in the amount or the type of information that we had received. We did a second round with each of the proposers, asked for some more detailed information, completed a thorough review of all 5 proposals using a variety of criteria. There was no single one compelling feature. We did not seek a variety of information and then only look at one aspect, financial considerations, for example. We used a broad-based evaluation of criteria to determine which in fact would be the best available development team because we are expecting that this will be an important relationship between the city and the development team in realizing and fulfilling the community's long-held vision. We looked at the developer experience and their capacity to do another project now, quickly, to take advantage of the improved market conditions and environment. We looked at their recent similar projects. We looked at the proposed hotel product and amenities. We looked at the compliance with the high-quality environment and the specific expectations of the specific plan. And as I indicated, we looked at the financial assumptions and the developer's financial capability. That process included, as I indicated, a broad-based solicitation, a careful evaluation of the proposals. And it also included, in the last phase, interviews with two of what the paper screening, if you will, identified as the most highly qualified of the 5 teams. We interviewed 2 teams, OTO Development and R.D. Olson Development. And I think it was, I can speak for the entire panel that conducted the interviews, that consisted both of our outside hotel and economic experts, city staff, as well as the 2 council members who comprise our subcommittee. I think I can speak for the entire group of us who participated in that process to say that we had 2 very, very good choices. We had 2 highly qualified teams who strongly demonstrated their interest in working with the city of San Bruno and joining in partnership with us. At the end of that careful and thorough evaluation, we did select and are recommending to you tonight that we enter into exclusive negotiations with OTO Development. Both of these developers proposed very similar projects, but as you will see in the next couple of slides, OTO and R.D. Olson, and this is characteristic of what the variety of the 5 proposals we received looked like. You can see on the 2 slides, if you go to the next one, and then after a moment, the next one, you can see that the 2 development teams responding to the same proposal, a request for proposal, and having a similar concept, still had some variation between the 2 of them in identifying what their specific proposal would be and how the project would be financed and configured. Those details are shown on the slide. The considerations that the interview team in our careful and thorough evaluation considered, and that we believe provide a recommendation, provide the basis for recommending OTO Development, are the following. And there are 5 specific ones that it came to mind as I was thinking about exactly what was it that specifically it differentiated the two companies. The hotel, the style and the intent with regard to the hotel operations. OTO intends to provide and contract for operations of the hotel in a manner that is similar to the way that they've done it with a number of their other products, and that they have successfully utilized with a number of other of their projects. OTO, as you saw in the previous slide, met the city's requirements for the important conference, meeting, and event space that is a highly desired characteristic of the project that we are seeking. And I failed to mention earlier that the conference space or the meeting event space is not a typical amenity that is included in the select service product. So this was a kind of a unique feature that each of the proposers had to really think about. How do we provide that? How do we finance that? because it's not, it doesn't come with a cookie cutter model of a select service type of hotel product. OTO, as I mentioned, provided a clear and thoughtful response to the community's vision for that space, and identified, and I'm sure that they will explain to you tonight how they envision that space as well. We looked at the breadth and the scope of the hotel development and operational experience. Again, OTO can speak to that more capably than I can. The financial capability of the company, again, a very broad, very deep, and very diverse financial portfolio. And we looked at whether the city could reasonably expect that by entering into a as tight as possible exclusive negotiating period, whether we would reasonably expect at this point that we would be back to you within 90, maybe as much as 120 days with an actual development agreement that meets the needs and the interests of the city of San Bruno, and that we don't expect that there will be a substantial delay, that, well, it's always possible that those negotiations could not reach fruition. We have a high level of confidence at this point where we're recommending the establishment of the negotiations, that in fact we will incur minimum risk in moving this project forward in a timely manner. Specifically to the negotiating rights agreement, which is the subject and the only subject of your action tonight, the next steps in the process, if you will, include three specific components. So the exclusive negotiating period would, with your direction tonight, commence as soon as we can make sure that we've covered all of the details about what's going to be negotiated, how the negotiations will occur, and what the schedule for that will be. In general terms, the negotiating rights agreement envisions 3 phases. That includes the initial period where we would take hopefully not more than a few weeks or a couple of weeks to negotiate and execute an exclusive negotiating rights agreement. Once that is done, and we have identified that we are negotiating exclusively with one development team, and that we're solely focused on the opportunity to reach a deal to bring back to you, the project due diligence period would commence. And during that time, both the city as well as the development team will really get down into the details of the design development, the financial aspects of the project, and all and any other necessary details that go into the creation of a development agreement. There's a great deal of work that needs to be done here, and the development team will incur a significant expense. Now, that expense has been estimated to me at into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is one of the main reasons why we and why cities in our situation typically use this process in order to give the developer, I've mentioned the type of certainty we're looking for. It's also, negotiations is always a two-way street, or two parties involved at least. The development team, in order to take the risk, if you will, of expending funds, doing the due diligence, creating the details, and engaging with us in an extended negotiations, needs to have a relative level of confidence that we're not out talking to others or soliciting other proposals while we're simultaneously negotiating. And then lastly, as the third phase, of the exclusive negotiating period, the city and the development team will get down to detailed level negotiations that, as I mentioned, is expected to result in the creation of a mutually agreeable development and disposition agreement. That agreement will come back to you at a later time. Again, we anticipate that would be in the summer of this year. And that development agreement will include all of the necessary deal points. In summary, the negotiating agreement establishes a time frame for negotiations, and it provides for the allocation of the resources, both that the city as well as the development team will need to expend in order to bring you back a sound, solid, and suitable deal. The development agreement itself, as I indicated, secures not only the details of the projects that is proposed, but it also expresses the terms and conditions of the city's, any city financial assistance and of the project entitlements that will be necessary in order to allow the project to move forward. So at the risk of being somewhat redundant, the next steps include the due diligence period, the negotiation of the agreement, at which time we will be able to tell you and ask for your consideration of any financial participation that may be envisioned for this project. Again, that's not tonight. City Council review and approval of that agreement. And then finally, and lastly, and with a great deal of what I hope will be pride, we hope to see an approximate 18-month period of construction and the eventual and final realization of this community's long-held and highly anticipated vision. So with that, I would ask your permission to allow Jason Moody to speak for a moment, and then once our presentations are finished, we'd be happy to answer questions, unless you'd like to ask questions now.
Thank you, Connie. Once again, my name is Jason Moody. I'm with a firm called Economic and Planning Systems, and we were retained by the city to review all the proposals that were submitted, focusing primarily on the financial aspects of the proposal. And in that area, we really focus on two areas, primarily the financial capacity of the developer to execute according to their proposal. And then we also looked at their requested subsidy. We gave less importance to that component because that was just a concept, really. It's not a commitment from them. It's not a commitment from us. It's just their kind of general sense of the kind of how much they would need, if anything, to do the project. So we put most of the attention on that portion of the evaluation, on the financial resources and capacity of the developers. All of the proposals, all four that were submitted information in this regard, and the two finalists clearly had the most resources at their disposal. They've had more project experience and to demonstrate that they could do this. Between the two finalists, we gave a slight nod to OTO on this, primarily because they have a larger portfolio of projects. They had committed equity to a project of this nature. They identified their equity. They provided more financial information about their available equity, and they have a much bigger portfolio. Again, R.D. Olson also, we believe, could successfully implement a project like this, but they had a few things on that component that were less desirable, primarily that, primarily they didn't identify their equity partners, and their primary equity would be provided by Mr. Olson himself, so he'd be fully guaranteeing the loan, which would be a full recourse loan, and if you have more questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. But essentially what that meant was that if, for any reason, and we didn't think this would be a case, but all of the other projects that he has kind of went south, or there was a lawsuit or something, or there was some financial issues, there's a potential that that could affect his ability to implement this project. So that was of some concern. But again, we felt both developers were very strong in this regard. We also looked at their commitment for their stated project financials, if you will, how much they thought it would cost to build the project, what the room rates would be, and how much they might need from the city. Again, we consider that with less importance because, and I've been doing this for my whole career, and I have never participated in a project in which the submitted terms that they do prior to an actual ENA is the actual terms that they end up committing to. In most cases, they are not really prepared to make a commitment because they haven't done the due diligence they need to really tell you how much they'll need and how much they're not. So it's usually gives you a kind of it's really kind of window dressing. We like to know if they think they're going to need a subsidy or not, but beyond that, we don't put too much emphasis on the actual differences because the very purpose of an ENA is to work that out. That's why we have an ENA process, is to make sure that is clear. So that was the basis of our financial analysis, and so we'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that.
Good. Any questions of staff at this time? No one?
We would like to offer you the opportunity to hear directly from OTO, and you might have some questions of them, and you might have some additional questions of us or
Great.
after.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Connie. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Todd Turner. I'm a founding partner of OTO Development based in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm here with two colleagues, Steve Peters, who's the head of real estate for this region, and Mike Gallen, who's the director of development for the West Coast. We're happy to be here, and we appreciate the confidence that your subcommittee has exhibited toward us among a pool of very qualified applicants. Over the last 9 months, we've been building a relationship with your planners and city executives regarding this project and our interest in bringing a hotel to this site. We were delighted to get a call from Connie 2 weekends ago saying that we were the ones who were selected to proceed out of the interview process. We look forward to working with you on this. I've not met each of you individually, so if you'd like, I'm going to spend some time talking about our company and our project and our proposal on this site. First, a little bit about OTO Development. We're a South Carolina-based hotel development and operating company with national exposure, local experience, and a long track record of success. OTO was formed in 2004. Since then, we've developed 49 hotels that are Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, select service, upscale branded hotels, including 16 in California. Today, we own and operate 37 hotels in 10 states. We're under construction on 4 hotels. 2 are in Midtown Manhattan and 2 are in downtown D.C. And we're 30 days away from starting construction on a new hotel in Palo Alto we've been working on for a couple years. So that's a local experience, very present. We're working on entitlements on 5 sites in California, 3 of which are in the Bay Area, including Palo Alto. Carrie, we can go to the next one. The projects that we work on are in markets that are difficult developments, typically involving complex projects, mixed use, subterranean parking, very high quality finish, and high quality brands. All right, Karen. We think sponsorship is important, and we think track record is important. OTO was formed from the same investors and managers who created Blockbuster Video and Extended Stay America. Upon selling Extended Stay America, we kept the same management and financial partners and formed OTO Development the next day. This map shows you just graphically our experience. We've built 526 hotels across the U.S. That's more than anybody in the industry. And we are actively seeking projects like this in high-performing, high-barrier markets where we can deliver a great product and a great community. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things we're working on. This is the Hilton Garden in Palo Alto, California, that we're going to start construction on next month. We can scroll through a couple of these. This is our hotel at Madison Square Garden Penn Station in Midtown Manhattan. It's going to open in April So if y'all are looking for a place to stay next time you go to a Knicks game, there it is. This project is under construction in downtown DC in the West End. It's a Hilton Garden. Right now it's a hole in the ground and we're starting to come up with our foundations. This will take another 18 months. This is a project that's been open since April of 11. It's another hotel in downtown DC. It's part of a $1 billion mixed-use project that had 3 levels of underground parking, 900,000 square feet of high-end Class A office, a grocery store, extremely complicated work, demonstrating our ability to work in an environment that's difficult. This is a recent project we're working on in San Diego, Mission Valley, a new Spring Hill Suites. This gives you an idea of the design we're doing down there for the brand new Spring Hill Suites. So we're recognized among the brands as a premier franchise partner. Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt, that's where we do all our work. We've received numerous awards acknowledging our development and operational achievements. We've won multiple Developer of the Year awards, and recently we received Marriott's highest honor, which is the Partnership Circle Award that goes to very few individuals. Also, we've built more Spring Hill Suites than anyone in the country. We operate our own hotels and are recognized by the brands for our excellence in that field too. Our CEO, Corey Oakes, is the president of the Spring Hill Suites Franchise Advisory Council within the Marriott Corporation. So I'll tell you a little bit about our hotel proposal. As Connie mentioned, we're initially proposed 131-room, 5-story Spring Hill Suites. Spring Hill is Marriott's upscale lifestyle brand that addresses the demands of both the business and the leisure traveler. It's their entry into this lifestyle segment with design and amenities that are going to cater perfectly to this market where you have corporate people during the week and a strong leisure component on the weekends. We think it's the perfect fit, and we hope you do too. Our project is going to have a combination of at-grade and below-grade parking, still to be worked out on fully engineering, but it might be 1 or 2 levels below grade on the parking. We're going to have 3,000 square feet of contiguous conference facility space. We're going to have amenities that you see listed up here. We're going to have a swimming pool and a hot tub, free hot breakfast. And the thing about Spring Hill Suites, there is a separate sort of living room in each suite where you can sit, and there's a microwave and a fridge and a wet bar there. So I think it's going to be great for that medium to long-term stay guest here in this area. This is the site plan that we initially have proposed. Shows the layout and demonstrates how tight this site is. Typically, when we're developing a Spring Hill Suites, we would look for a 2.5-acre site that we could lay out all the parking on the surface around the hotel. It's just the most efficient way to do it. We know there are site constraints here, but we've worked on a project where this is going to work functionally. And Jason talked about the expense of doing this, and Connie talked about this, but it's going to be a great project when we're done. And we've got a long way to go, and this is all very preliminary. We know that the development process is collaborative. Everywhere we build a hotel, it starts with our coming in with an idea to the folks at the city, the Architectural Review Board, the city planners. And just want to give you an example of collaboration in action. This is a rendering of our early designs for 2 hotels we're proposing in Santa Monica, California. A Courtyard on the left and the Hampton Inn and Suites on the right. This is what we came in with, a beautiful hotel. We loved the way it looked, but through a very long iterative process that's still in the works, much to Mike Gallen's chagrin. The next slide shows you where we are today on design and how it has evolved through a lot of input from various people. I like the first one better myself, but this is what we're doing. So that's, I appreciate your time and thank you for listening. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have about me or our project.
Good.
Or our proposal.
Well, Mr. Ibarra and I had the privilege of meeting you a number of times and pretty extensively, but I want to see if the rest of the council has any questions for the developer. Michael?
Thank you. So we were told that the estimate of the city's contribution was that it was just an estimate at this point based on whatever information you have, but being that you've developed over 500 of these properties and probably had to go through this process several times, I imagine you're probably pretty good at making those estimates. And I'm just wondering, what's your track record so far? How close have you come in on the other estimates, and can we expect to be pretty close to what you've proposed?
I think in this case, what we were asked to present as far as our application was our best guess on what we knew today, which is not much. As Connie mentioned, that once you get into the due diligence process and start spending tens of thousands of dollars to really understand the engineering, the soils conditions, what type of structure you're going to have under the building, you don't know a lot. We will know more in 60 days. We're going to know a lot more in 120 days. But it is an estimate based upon our experience, locally with Palo Alto. We just got bids back on that hotel, so we know what it cost us to build that on a per square foot basis. We know what it cost to build a subterranean parking stall per stall, because we did 2 levels underground in Palo Alto also. So we have very local, very current data. On this one, it's an estimate, yes, but we're being conservative also. We took the approach of being conservative and putting probably more up front today, hoping that as we learn in the months to come, that we can bring our development costs down and therefore bring the amount of participation from the city down with it. We wanted to do it that way rather than to come to you with a low proposed participation and then come back 6 months from now and say we need another $1 million. That's the way we chose to do it. And we committed in our subcommittee meeting that we will be open with what we find as we go from here forward about our changes in the market, both the performance of the hotels in the market, which is a big driver of the math, and also changes in the cost to develop this hotel the way we all want it to look.
And in your experience, what in general is a key driver of that figure? What would you encounter when you start digging in a little deeper that would generally trigger a big variance in that estimate?
It's most likely going to be the per square foot construction cost of the building and the per stall cost of the subterranean parking. We understand that part of our proposal, and we're prepared to do this, is the prevailing wage of the construction project itself, which is an inflator over what our prices were in Palo Alto. So we applied roughly a 35 to 40% premium over our development cost down there to come up with our estimate for this project. And we think that's high. We hope that's high. I think that's going to be where we're going to see the biggest reduction. That's on the denominator of the equation. The numerator of the equation is how well the market performs this year and how the forecasters see the next 4 or 5 years in the market performing, which is going to give us the numerator, which is how we're going to perform on our bottom line revenue at this hotel. So that's the math. It's how much money you make over how much it costs to build it. And as those change, we've got a threshold that we want to achieve that's commensurate with the risk of development as far as a return on our investment. And it's just a formula. We've got a complex pro forma that we put together that factors in a whole lot of things. And it's going to change a lot between now and a year from now. But we hope in the positive direction for all of us. So.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair.
Rico?
To go on some of the same comments from Councilmember Salazar. So one of his questions were, out of all the projects that you've done, how on target have you been with your projections? And I heard a lot of detail, a lot of information, but I don't know if I really heard a specific answer to that question.
Okay. Mike, in Palo Alto, how did we come in on our final numbers versus our estimates from a year ago? And Mike is our Director of Development for the West Coast.
Good evening. I would say, historically, I think we've done a good job budgeting all of our projects. I think we typically come in, at or under budget on the vast majority of everything I can recall. On Palo Alto, I think because of the cycle that we're in right now, we did see a little bit of a spike in the Bay Area. I think the Bay Area is accelerating much more. I think there's much more competition for labor in the market right now. So we actually were slightly over on our construction budget where the final number came in versus what we had budgeted. But it was well within our contingency, and I think we, made it work. So I think we have a great track record of hitting budget.
And with our experience in developing in the regions where we're building, Southern California, Northern California, the Northeast, we've got relationships with enough general contractors who have built these hotels for us, who can give us price checks along the way to where we keep our pencil sharp and we don't like surprises. Our investors do not like those over budget surprises. But we've become very good over the years in estimating this initially and that number following through to the end.
And then one thing that anyone, I mean, I wasn't on the subcommittee, and again, I'm not in your profession, but residents or folks might say, well, why do we need to give them concessions at all? There's a number that's here, which I've heard from you in the report from staff, is that that's not to say that's what it is going to be. Right. This is a understanding of entering into an agreement, which then that is discussed and evaluated, as you said, with some of the criteria over a period of time. So, to the residents of San Bruno, why are concessions needed? How are they derived for when you are putting in this proposal? Because obviously, we don't all do this for a living, so
right.
It would help to enlighten us.
Okay, sure. I talked about a couple factors that are in the equation. One of them is how the hotel market performs and how we think this hotel is going to perform. We do that research. There's a company called Smith Travel Research out of Nashville who collects hotel performance data on all the hotels in the country pretty much every day. So we use that data from Smith Travel to see how is the market doing. That's the most important fundamental driver of how you're going to do in this market. We studied, I think it was 9 hotels in San Bruno and up in Oyster Point, looked at their performance history going back to the year 2000 and put together some trends and analysis of how this market has performed historically as is compared to San Francisco, as is compared to the Peninsula, and as is compared to the U.S., and have a very good sense of how this market is doing today. At the end of 2012, that comp set of hotels was 82% occupied at $141 in average daily rate. Average daily rate is called ADR. That's in the business. So you've got a stretch of hotels there. It's, I think, 9 hotels that average $141 and rate at 82%. Very strong performance. We look at this performance of comp set hotels and say if we were open and stabilized today, being a new hotel, when the newest hotel that we're competing against is 12 years old, being a new hotel in this very good location, how would we stack up in that spread, in that spectrum of competitors? So average is 141. The range is probably 160 some dollars to 120 some dollars. We estimated that today, if we were open and stabilized with our Spring Hill Suites, we'd be running about 80% and $153 essentially. From that, we look at forecasting the future, which is tough to do. But we rely on a lot of experts like PKF, who provides this study called Hotel Horizons that looks at this MSA and many others in the country and says, over the next 5 years, what do they see the changes coming in the region for changes in occupancy and average daily rate? Their estimate is that from year-end 2012 to year-end 2016, average daily rate is going to go up 58% in this region. That includes San Francisco down to San Mateo. Heavily weighted by San Francisco, but we look at those factors. All the indicators are very positive that this market is going to continue to rise as the tide rises in this region. So our hotel, if we start at $153, is going to rise with the market. So that's how we determine where we're going to be performing when this thing stabilizes in 2017. So that we also, having operated so many hotels, we know the kind of net operating income percentages that flow to the bottom line, which is our profitability. So from that, we've pegged the top line, how we're going to do. With our pro forma, we know we've got a hurdle investment return we're trying to hit on all the projects we do around the country. For something to be enticing for our investors and for us to want to recommend to our investors that they proceed with the risk of doing these type of projects, they have to hit this hurdle return to compare with other things we're looking at around the country. So the hurdle, the denominator is how much does it cost to build. In this case, the requirement for being underground parking, the requirement for prevailing wage construction are very expensive things to do, as opposed to doing a surface parking lot. And if I may make a comparison to Palo Alto, so today this market is running $141 in rate. The Palo Alto market is running $191 in rate. So the impact of that additional $50 in rate every night by every room is enormous in your ability to absorb additional development cost. So were this market running at $191 as opposed to $141, we would not be asking for any subsidy. Short answer, I know you probably wanted that earlier instead of later, but the short answer is, in order to be an attractive return, the development cost has to be at a certain level and can't be above a certain level. And based upon our initial estimates, we did the math, and if the certain level is here, and without subsidy, it was going to cost us this much. We put a subsidy in there that equalized. It got us to that threshold that we couldn't exceed and still have an interesting investment to our investors. Did somewhere in there answer your question?
I think at the end you summed it up.
Okay.
That's end of my questions for now.
Irene, anything?
No, sorry.
But thank you for the understanding and the detail, and in all sincerity. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate all the work that has been done by both you and the R.D. Olson development. I can see why the subcommittee and the staff had difficulty choosing between you, but your experience is overwhelming. Have you ever had a time where you totally failed, and what lessons you came back with that?
2009 was the worst year in lodging since 1936.
Really?
Unprecedented declines in RevPAR, just indicating the risk involved with development. No one saw that coming. Probably people should have seen it, but we didn't. No one did. We had to let a few projects go because they were in a stage where we had to decide to commit hundreds of thousands of more dollars to proceed with the project without any vision of any financing being available for who knows how long. I mean, it was, the financial markets were in ruin, and who was going to support a new development of anything. So we let a few projects go that we wish we hadn't let go. We've learned a lot from that, and today we wish we had found a way to hold on to those, closed on the deals, and we would now be open with a couple of great hotels in certain markets that we'd be proud to own and would be performing very well. We know things are cyclical, and they're always going to be cyclical. That one was just particularly shocking and caused us to probably fail a couple times when we made some, looking back on it, rash decisions that probably were prudent at the time, but looking back, we wish we had taken a different course. But we also did, you probably have heard enough failure stories, but we bought an old building in downtown Baltimore, 100-year-old building, one of the few that survived a big fire down there, with the idea of converting it into Spring Hill Suites. And as we got into the diligence of really understanding the structure there, it ended up being way over budget, and that's one of our that's probably the only existing development thing that I would say is a failure, because we were so far over budget because of what we weren't able to discover up front because of the ownership of the building. It wouldn't let us in adequately. But other than that, I think our investors have been very happy with what we've done.
Okay, thank you.
Question for Jason. People have talked and speculated that the city's subsidizing this whole thing. There's a return, on this investment. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that if you really look at the totality, this is a money maker for the city, not a money loser. The city will make money on transient occupancy tax. That's the primary source of revenue, and property tax. So those things, we calculate preliminary based on a 10-year period, and that's about a $6 million return to the city. That's assuming the subsidy that they're requesting. If you take away their subsidy, that would be about $8 or $9 million. So this is, in the end, going to make money for the city. So you certainly want to have that big picture when considering a project. The most important thing is to make sure you can execute the project and make sure you pick a developer who's capable, you're confident of doing that, because that will allow you to get the actual money that's going to be a major boon to the general fund of the city. It'll dwarf the subsidy, basically, in the long run.
Thank you. Ken?
Gentlemen, as a member of the subcommittee, I was just tickled to be in that meeting, to be in that room, and to listen and to, first be able to review 5 very good proposals and then narrow it down to 2. Very experienced and in between, it was very difficult to make the decision. But one of the things that really struck me and I felt very good about was when I asked the question, from your experience, and you have a lot of experience, what attracted you to San Bruno? What is it about this site that an OTO would come and put in all this time and effort to, to put a product here?
It's a great question. It's San Bruno and this site have the characteristics that we're looking for in every project we do, and it sounds simple, but it's hard to find. High level of sustained performance, meaning high occupancy and a strong average daily rate, that even through the downturn, this market only went down to 75% occupancy when the whole country went down to 52% occupancy. So that in itself shows the resiliency of this market. The rate dropped a good bit, but occupancy stayed high. So that's a big quality we're looking for, and we find markets like this through studying data and through Steve's knowledge of the market from the ground. It's high barriers to entry. That means it is difficult to get something built in this area. The last hotel that opened in this submarket opened in 2001, I believe, or maybe it was the year 2000, but I think 12 years is the newest hotel in the area, which again is the best indicator of how hard it is to do something. We love the peninsula, the Bay Area, but particularly the peninsula. In the space from SFO down to San Jose, there have only been, I think, 2 branded hotels to open since 2005. So this entire region has that characteristic about it. This market, we like it. It's very close to some major demand generators, both corporate ones right across 380. The airport is a massive driver, over 40 million people in and out of that every year. And we're one of the closest submarkets and easiest to get to downtown San Francisco, where people have an easy time selecting a brand new Marriott branded hotel that will be a significant discount to downtown. We hope not a huge discount, because bigger rates are better than smaller rates, but it is a great alternative for folks visiting the city for leisure.
All right, any other questions of staff or the developer? See, we have a crowd in the room, and I don't think you all came to just listen. Did anybody else want to address the council? Please tell us your name and your affiliation. Thank you.
My name is Corey Kreth, and I'm a principal with Axis Architecture, and I'm here tonight to represent the apparent second place development team. I'm here on behalf of my client, R.D. Olson. And first of all, if the vote had been taken, I would be here congratulating the outstanding effort by the team from OTO. I haven't even had the pleasure of meeting you yet, but they're pros. That's obvious. But my client, who was thoroughly vetted through this whole process as well, is also a thorough pro. And he asked me to come tonight to just share a few thoughts and maybe ask you to consider a different outcome, since the vote hasn't been taken yet. It was stated earlier that there is no deal done at this time, that at this point the developers have only put together their best guess on what this deal might look like. But let me just point out a few of the differences. Our proposal included 149 guest rooms, which is a significant increase to what the recommended team is proposing. That will, down the road, translate to significant enhancement in the TOT tax revenue that would flow to the city. Really, in all other aspects, I think it's been said tonight that it was a very difficult decision, that it was very close, that both teams were experienced, could deliver on the city's vision. There was talk about the quality of the asset that will be produced. I think that shined in the interview. It was a pleasure to be a part of that process myself, speaking personally. And I think you all came away with a good idea of what R.D. Olson's capabilities are. The meeting space, we made a commitment to provide the ballroom that would equal the 200-seat capacity for banquet-style events. So really across the board, when you check the boxes, we were right there. And it came as a huge disappointment to learn that we weren't staff's recommended team. But what I would offer you is this simple fact. Even though the deal hasn't been negotiated yet and there's terms that will need to be worked out, I submit to you that you're starting as a city in a $2.5 million hole in this negotiation, because my client was only asking a contribution of the land, the $1.4 million, and it's been portrayed to us that OTO's request is $3.9 million. $2.5 million is a lot to give away at the beginning of a negotiation. And so if all else is equal, or if all else is really close to being equal, because R.D. Olson has a terrific track record, I would just simply ask you, why give away $2.5 million of the city's money? Appreciate your consideration and your time.
Thank you. Next, please. Just pull that right down. Tell us your name and your affiliation,
My
please.
name is Maria Rhodes, and I live in San Bruno for 35 years. I'm a member of Local 2 because I work for AT&T Park in Candlestick for 24 years. My life story is the importance of having a union. During the baseball season, I have health insurance, but in the off season, I work cleaning house out of the union. And I can't afford to pay health insurance. I pay $150 for my medication, and I can't afford to go to the doctor. So it's why it's very important for the community of San Bruno to have the hotel workers to get union benefits like health insurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Graciela Calhoun. I have lived
Could you raise it? There you go. Thank you.
in San Bruno for 14 years, worked at the Radisson Fisherman's Wharf, San Francisco for 7 years, and I have been a member of Local 2 for 9 years. The union gives us security in our jobs, protection for the employees, and good family and medical benefits. This is why I feel that the new hotel opening here in San Bruno needs to be staffed by union members. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laszlo Pohotsky. I live in San Bruno for 6 years. I am a Local 2 member in San Francisco at the Sheraton Fisherman's Wharf Hotel. I'm a house person. Having a union is incredibly important for the hotel workers. Without the union, workers have no rights, no respect on the job. Non-union jobs in a hotels is terrible. The workers were not treated well. I've been working for a non-union hotel in Palo Alto, in a Crown Plaza, the Hyatt, Stamford Park Hotel, and they had no union. So anyway, with no union, workers do not have health care or pensions or paid time off, for example, PTO, personal time off. Because we have the union, workers at my hotel are treated with respect. We are able to raise our families with health coverage, healthcare insurance. I hope you will do everything you can so ensure that the workers at the new hotel in San Bruno will have a union and respect, so they will able to have healthcare, Medicare insurance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Lemoyne Werlein Haeng. I work with Unite Here Local 2, the Hotel Food Service and Gaming Industry Union. The other hat I wear is as president of the San Mateo County Labor Council, where I've had occasion to meet some of you through that work in that capacity. But tonight I'm here to speak on behalf of my union, Unite Here Local 2. And we just, I want to very briefly add a little bit to what our members have already spoken to in terms of their hopes and desires that this hotel will become a union hotel. And we just want to very briefly acknowledge and applaud the fact that this will be built with union labor in the construction phase. But as a union, our concern is for the workers after, the folks who will be there when the hotel opens and staff that hotel. And the only thing that I guess that I wanted to emphasize here is that it's our firm conviction that it is the union that will be the difference between whether or not these jobs have affordable health insurance that covers families, whether or not these jobs will have pensions and retirement security, whether or not these jobs will have union protection in terms of employment rights and so forth. It is our firm conviction that absent the union, there will not be an affordable health plan there that covers families. There will not be a pension plan there. There will not be retirement security, and there will not be a job security there. So we really hope that in the upcoming weeks that we have the opportunity to work with the city and to work with OTO Development to figure out how we can unionize this hotel and hopefully do it in a way that is expeditious, without interference, where the workers there are able to quickly make their desires known and expeditiously be able to launch the union there. So we hope specifically that OTO Development will agree to a card check neutrality agreement as a mechanism to ensure that the workers do in fact have a way to unionize without interference. And once again, just to sum up, more than anything, we really want to emphasize that it's our firm conviction. It really is the union that is going to be the difference between jobs that provide affordable health insurance and family coverage, a job that has a pension fund, an actual pension, and security in retirement, and one that has basic protections where all the workers are not just at will and subject to potential termination at any moment. So thank you very much for this time, and we just wanted to make sure, finally, another member of our union, Renee Morales, who was here, wanted to make sure that I mentioned she was here and wanted to speak on behalf of unionizing this project, but she had to leave. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other questions of staff or?
There's one more.
Oh, one more?
Good evening, my name is Maya Singh.
Step right up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Maya Singh. I live in San Bruno, 36 years, and I work union in the Hyatt for 20 years, and it is very good. We have a union, we have a benefit, everything. I work part-time, other hotels, nothing. We don't have nothing. They don't treat us right, and we work in the Hyatt. We work 20 years. We work first year. They pay same amount, and we treat equal right. Another hotel, non-union, I work also part-time. They treat like one person get $15 hour, and we do same work, we get $8.50 hour. That's not fair. Non-union, and no benefit, no hospital, nothing. Hyatt, we have everything. And thank you.
Thank you.
We like to have a new hotel union.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Any questions, council, or any action? Ken?
Well, I'll start off here, and I just wanted to say that it's been a long time, and ironically, I, with two other members of this council, sat in another hotel ballroom and watched the crossings get developed, and with the auction of that 20 acres, and that was, I believe, 1999, 98. And so we've seen the development of this site, and we have patiently waited for this night and for an opportunity to have this hotel. And I am just pleased that, to serve with the mayor on this subcommittee and to be serving on this council to see this day here. I am very impressed with what staff has done to give us the opportunity to make this decision. I'm very impressed with the developers that have come forward. I'm proud that that we've gotten that kind of reaction from the hotel industry. And so the day has come, and I'm just as pleased. And I know it's just the beginning. I know there's still a lot that has to be done, but this is where it has to go. And I'm prepared to make a motion or adopt a resolution. What has to be made to get this process moving.
Yeah, motion to select the development team and enter into negotiations.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question, I would like to just add, echo what Ken said. I've worked on this council since '95 when we had a Navy base over there, bare piece of land, no tax revenue in this city, and now it's worth $300 million. And it's a huge step. We took a lot of chances. We had redevelopment when it was around. It really helped us. It's not around anymore, but we're bound and determined to make this happen, because in the bigger picture, this city deserves exactly what they voted for and exactly what they want. So we'll do everything we possibly can to make it happen for all of our citizens. So having said that, on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 10B, provide discussion and direction to adopt resolution supporting federal and state gun violence legislation and to identify specific local measures to reduce the risk of gun violence. City Attorney.
Thank you,
Why don't
Mr.
we
Mayor.
wait a
We'll
moment
give
and
it
let
a
the
minute or
room
two to
clear?
clear the room. For those who want to stay, welcome. Yeah, I got it.
All right, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience who are here, and folks at home. So the transition from building possibly a hotel development to gun violence is one of the more awkward transitions that we've had to make at a city council meeting, but I think it just underscores the depth and breadth of what cities do in this day and age. I'll have about a 10-minute presentation with Neil Telford, our Chief of Police here, also available to answer questions. And the first question that the city staff asked itself was, is there anything a city can do to reduce gun violence? And this topic came up certainly by the tragic murder at the Sandy Hook Elementary School, although that was not the first time there was a tragedy involving gun violence. There were certainly other occasions before that we're all very aware of. And so we had a number of individuals and government leaders, Jackie Spear, Dianne Feinstein, City and County of San Francisco, approach the city and say, can anything be done? And if so, what can the city do? And is it possible for the city to make a difference? So that's the question that we're going to pose to you tonight, and hopefully make some progress into getting some answers. So there's really three things that cities can do, and we're going to talk about all three of those tonight. One of them is to support ongoing federal efforts, whatever those are, and we'll talk about those in a minute. The second thing is to support ongoing state efforts, and the third is to adopt local measures. And we'll spend a few minutes talking about the first two, and most of the rest of the time talking about the last topic. So what's going on at the federal level? And primarily, it's President Obama's very detailed plan, which we've included a summary of in the staff packet. And what it essentially does is calls for two sets of actions, one set that Congress would have to take, another set that could be done by executive order. But in essence, it's universal background checks, support for Senator Feinstein's renewal of the assault weapon ban, a limit on the number of bullets that you can have in ammunition magazines, stronger prosecution for gun crimes, some more research on gun violence because that's been stalled recently over the years, and then possibly some additional funding through the COPS program for cities, although it's not clear exactly whether the city of San Bruno would get anything, or if so, how much. It's important to know that President Obama's plan was supported by a broad coalition of mayors throughout the country. So that's in essence what's going on at the federal level, and at the end of the presentation, I'll ask you if the City Council is interested in adopting a resolution to support that plan. The next question is, what can the city do with respect to supporting state efforts? So we've got a total of 11 bills pending right now. Actually, those are just the ones that were introduced since the beginning of the year. I think there might have been even a couple more introduced in December of last year. Most of those bills, as you've seen in the staff report, are going to further strengthen existing regulations. But those could be anything from requiring additional reporting of ammunition to some additional funding for security guards at schools. So we don't really know how these bills are going to shake out, and we don't know what position cities or the League of Cities is going to take on them. So at the end of the presentation, we'll be requesting that you direct us to monitor those bills and report back to you if there's anything of interest. So what we want to do for the next couple of minutes is spend a little bit of time talking about what can the city do with respect to local measures. And it's important to understand that the city's ability, hold on one second while we ask someone to have folks quiet down outside. Thanks. It's important to note that there's sections of state law that limit to some degree what cities can do, and that's primarily in the area of gun licensing and registration. And so there's state laws that say it's the state that decides those issues and cities can't do much about them. However, cities can do a number of things, and so that's what we're going to talk about this evening. Cities can regulate certain types of ammunition, and we'll see that, in fact, in the very next slide. Courts have upheld permit systems that apply to gun dealers, because those are people that are in the business of selling these weapons. And in addition to that, cities have a constitutional power that flows from the state constitution to regulate the location and distribution of businesses throughout their city so that they're located in the best possible places. And then, of course, cities can implement voluntary programs. So we're going to just take a minute and look at each one of these four possible measures. And the first one is additional regulation of ammunition. And this is the San Francisco ordinance that all of you, I think, received a letter from Mayor Lee in San Francisco saying that they in San Francisco are going to recommend an ordinance that does two things. First of all, it would ban the sale and possession of hollow point ammunition. And second, it would require dealers who sell more than 500 rounds at one time to report that to the police department. Well, why would we want to consider those things? Well, the hollow point ammunition is defined in state law as having, quote, enhanced lethality. I don't think I've ever heard that last word before, but I think that means they're really deadly and only intended to kill people. So in the penal code, it's been found that those kinds of bullets really don't have any legitimate purpose for either sport or self-protection, and so that's the reason why they're recommending that those kinds of ammunition be banned. And then second of all, why would anybody care if somebody purchases 500 rounds of ammunition at one time? And I think the answer there is perhaps a little bit more obvious. There's no apparent sporting or home protection purpose as to why you would need 500 rounds of ammunition. So it's the possibility that it would potentially reduce the risk of gun violence in the future if the police department knew of those kinds of purchases. So that's an ordinance that we're being asked to both support and then potentially to adopt ourselves. So the second thing that cities can do, and a number of cities have such systems, Palo Alto, Lafayette, to name a couple of examples, is to have a permit system for gun dealers. And this would apply only to dealers, not to any individuals who seek to purchase weapons. The goal is to ensure that everybody who's involved in the sale or transfer of firearms are, in essence, responsible citizens. So what can we do about that? And first of all, we can have an application and background check. A lot of that's already taken care of by the background check if you're going to be a federally licensed dealer. But more to the point, we want to make sure and have the ability to say that those businesses have to have appropriate security. Some of them do. that they store guns and ammunition safely so people can't get to them unless they're intending to. There's a requirement in some systems that the business have liability insurance. Actually, that's not all that uncommon. In case of accidents, most businesses have liability insurance. Most are mandated by a lease, for example, that you have with the landlord. So that's not an unusual requirement. And we would also propose that if there is such a system, that there would be a hearing available to the owner of the establishment if a permit were denied or revoked. And that's to make sure that the city can correct any mistake it might make in the process. So the proposal here is that the permit system would apply to existing dealers as well. We only have 2 of them. We'll talk about that in a minute. But with a bit of a grace period, which would end up being anywhere between 60 and 120 days. 60 days is kind of the norm. Usually it takes another 60 days to get an ordinance passed, so by the time it would happen, in essence, dealers that are existing now would have 3-4 months in order to apply and go through the checks. So that's what's being recommended for gun dealers. There is one provision in some of the cities in their municipal codes that say that people who have their firearms, that they lose them, or if they're stolen, that they should report that to the police. And that's actually an important thing, because one of the things we hear a lot is that a lot of gun violence is a result of weapons that are illegal. Well, if you've stolen a weapon, you're not authorized to have it. So that's the sort of thing that we'd want the police department to know about and be able to follow up on. So that's the second thing that we're proposing as far as reducing the potential risk of gun violence. The third thing is for the city to consider using its constitutional zoning powers to regulate uses and where these businesses are. And so any zoning ordinance change would require review and recommendation by the Planning Commission. So what would that involve? Well, right now, under our current code, gun dealers are actually allowed only in the central business district zone, and that's kind of the core San Mateo Avenue zone. Frankly, a bit of an unusual place that you'd want to have gun dealers, but that's what it says. Our 2 existing dealers that we have, which is Big 5 and Golden Gate Guns, are actually located on El Camino, so they're not in the CBD zone, they're in the C zone. So that makes them legal non-conforming uses. And what that means is any change to zoning wouldn't apply to them, it would only apply to new establishments seeking to come in. So here are a couple of alternatives that we're going to ask for some direction on. One possibility is you could direct staff to prepare an ordinance that would prohibit any new dealers. And you'd have to make some findings about that. You'd have to say that, well, the 2 we have are sufficient. They have secondary effects. We don't really want any more. And that would probably require some further study from staff before we could bring that forward. Another possibility is you could enact a moratorium on new dealers so that you wouldn't have the risk of any new ones coming in absent further study. So that's a possibility. Or staff could explore limiting new dealers to a particular zoning district. As I said, we probably don't want them in the central business district, but we might be okay with gun shops in a different district. So that's something that we could take a look at. Where would that use be most appropriate? Another possibility is that wherever the businesses are located, the new ones, you could require what's called a CUP, a conditional use permit. And that would be to make sure that the businesses address any problems, any secondary effects of being located where they are. And then finally, you could establish what are called proximity limits, and those are pretty common. For example, you don't want to have a gun shop near a school or near a park or near a church, for example, or you want them 1,000 feet away from each other, those kinds of things. So those are pretty common types of zoning mechanisms that other cities have used. The last thing we could do is have some voluntary programs, and you've heard about these in the media. Locally, there's been some gun buyback programs run by both cities and the county. This was one of the efforts that Congresswoman Spear was interested in. These programs seem very well used based on media reports, but funding is an issue, in fact, because they appear to be very well used. So if we look at that, we need to come back to you with some financial information. One suggestion that's been made is to have some sort of an anonymous tip line to report the use of illegal guns, again, sort of focusing on that, and that's worked in a couple of cities. Finally, as Neil can tell you much more about if you're interested, the police department does currently work very extensively with schools and is going to continue those efforts, both with respect to emergency preparedness and, most importantly, to collaborate with people called school safety advocates. And that's a program that's designed to identify youth that's particularly at risk. And so if we can figure out a way to prevent gun violence from starting in the first place, that's something that we want to do, and the police department is certainly making an effort to do that. So finally, what we'd like you to do this evening is tell us whether you'd like us to prepare a resolution supporting the President's plan on a federal level, to monitor the state legislation and come back to you with any recommendations about that, whether you want a permit system that would be part of the municipal code, which would add the ammunition restrictions and/or reporting requirements and some of the other things we talked about. Would you like us to draft any amendments to the zoning ordinance, and if so, can you give us some direction about those things? And are you interested in having us look further at some of the voluntary programs like the gun buyback and those sorts of things? So that's what we'd like some direction about this evening. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And our Chief of Police, Neil Telford, is also here to answer questions too.
Thank you, Mark. Any comments, Chief, before we start?
Just in terms of the schools, we're currently reviewing all school safety plans. We're currently working with all school campuses, both our public schools and our private schools, to make sure that they are prepared, to make sure that their plans are adequate. As Mark mentioned earlier, our school safety advocate program that is very beneficial in identifying youth at risk in our high schools and our middle school. And it's not just San Bruno, it's San Mateo County as a whole. The education community, the emergency response services in San Mateo County are all meeting in April for a school safety summit to get together to share ideas and to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we did want to make you aware that we are working with our schools to make a safe San Bruno community.
Thank you. Before we get into comments, I just want to let the council know, I believe I was the first one to bring this before the chief and the city manager. Really concerned me with Sandy Hook, and not just Sandy Hook, a lot of other things that have happened recently from a safety basis. I'm getting really tired, and the people of this country are getting very tired of these fingers of grief. People are killed, 26, 20 little babies, and it doesn't stop there. This grief goes out through thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. Same thing happened to us on a whole different level here in San Bruno. All right, we found out that because of a lack of oversight by higher-ups, the people we think are being taken care of us, the federal government, and especially our own PUC, San Bruno suffered the loss of 8 people. And it wasn't only 8 people, it was all of this grief that we have suffered and the communities around us suffer, and now it's a national thing. The same thing's happening, as I said, in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So whether it be pipeline safety, whether it be gun violence, it has to start, unfortunately, from the bottom up, because it's not happening from the top down. And I think it's up to us as mayors and council people to get that ball rolling. We are the ones in the local communities that have to live with this. So I think it's really important that we do something. It's not going to cure the problem, but if that one gun that we were to prevent being sold, and that one clip or magazine, whatever you want to call it, was the one that wasn't sold to that fellow's mother that day, that wasn't taken from her house, who knows what could have happened or not have happened. So it's very important to me. We see it on a daily basis. I signed a note of support to the mayors of this country. There's 850 mayors, local mayors, large cities, small cities, that have gotten on board with the United States Conference of Mayors to support the stronger gun violence, gun initiatives as far as restrictions on what can be sold and the different types of firearms and different types of magazines. So that's a start, but I think at a local level, I believe we're the first city in San Mateo County that has initiated something like this, and I think it's very important to do a couple things, get behind Mayor Lee in San Francisco and support the resolution that he's proposing. I think that's important. And I would like staff to look at the permitting issues that you mentioned that are possibilities in our town. Maybe some of those things are being done already, and maybe they're not. and I think that's at least a start. There may be some more things down the road with the zoning and stuff. It's going to take a lot longer and a lot more research, but I think with those two first steps, it's very important. And then I'll ask the council for their comments.
Through the
Michael?
Chair. This topic, I think, right now, nationally, is a very emotional topic, and just want to take just a really brief second here to kind of take some of the emotion out of that and look realistically at some of the things that were mentioned here and see what effect we could really expect to see out of some of these things. So I just wrote down a few notes, and regarding a limit on the requirement to report 500 rounds. So if somebody purchases 500 rounds of ammunition at a local store, it gets reported to the police department. First of all, are we prepared to follow up on those reports? And if we find that somebody does have 500 rounds, legally, what can we do? Are we in a position where we can say, no, you can't own 500 rounds of ammunition, and can we confiscate that ammunition? Or, I mean, what do we do with that information?
So I'll take the last answer, which is no. I'll have the chief talk a little bit about what sort of early warning or detection system it might provide for them to know that somebody's purchased that amount of ammunition.
Okay.
So that Mark's exactly right. So what that would do is it's essentially an early warning system. If the ammunition is legally sold in the city, there's nothing that would prohibit the individual from owning 500 rounds of ammunition. But again, it's just letting that law enforcement agency know that this individual has purchased 500 rounds of ammunition. We would then look and see, is there other recent purchases? Are there any other factors to consider? And is this a warning sign or a warning signal for us to look at other areas and other avenues where we might want to make contact with an individual?
And if an individual was really interested in buying a lot of ammunition, they could order it off the internet, and that would sort of slip under the radar. I imagine there'd be no way to track that.
You're correct that the individual could order it over the internet, and there really isn't a way to detect that. And I think as we go down the road, we're going to have to look into that and see if there's some mechanism that we can't make applicable to our ordinance.
Okay. And again, I hate to sound like a spokesman for the NRA, but one of their arguments is that if you make certain things illegal, legal owners are affected by this. People that abide by the law are affected by this, but those that choose not to obey the law are going to continue doing exactly what they're doing. So I want to make sure that if we do decide to put something on the books, it's not just there to pay lip service to this, but that we're actually doing something that's going to prevent a crime from happening. In terms of the lost gun thing, so somebody has a gun stolen, what do we do with that information?
So that information is entered into a nationwide database. The firearm, the serial number, all of that is entered. So that alerts any law enforcement agency in the country that's running that firearm. That'll let them know this is a stolen firearm. Should an individual go to resell that firearm or, again, in a legal manner, then that would indicate and that would flag that firearm and hopefully get that firearm recovered.
I mean, chances are we wouldn't recover that weapon until it was used in a crime or somebody tried to sell it.
That is possible, or if that individual was stopped by a law enforcement agency, the law enforcement agency would automatically run that firearm, and then that officer would know that that firearm was reported stolen.
Okay, that's a good point there. Okay. Is there any data that would indicate that the presence of a gun store in a community leads to a greater chance of gun violence within that community?
Not that, I'm aware that we have had, during my career, we've had two or three burglaries of firearms from gun stores in San Bruno. In one case, that individual was caught, but they were caught in another city with a stockpile of those stolen weapons. The other case, those weapons some have been recovered, some of them are still outstanding. So it's hard to tell because I don't know what happened to those firearms in the cases where they haven't been recovered and have those been used in a crime, and we just haven't discovered that yet.
Okay. But really, I mean, there would be really nothing to indicate that because San Bruno has 2 gun stores that we might have more gun violence than other cities. And I don't know what the other cities have, but I mean, we talked a lot about regulating the stores, but again, those are outlets for illegal weapons unless somebody steals them. I think maybe having some requirements, Mark, I think you did review that in terms of how they physically secure their inventory would have more of a benefit. And actually, if somebody were to move their gun store to another city that's unregulated, I would almost rather have them here where we can regulate them rather than say, no, don't come to our city and go somewhere else where you can do whatever you want. I think the tip line is probably a good idea. You know, I was also thinking around really focusing on dangerous individuals rather than focusing on the weapon also. And when we talk about tip lines, maybe we could encourage a system where people identify people that are likely to commit crimes, people that are likely to be violent, and get that information to the police so that we can maybe follow up on that. Again, I don't know the legality of us, you know, following up on somebody just because their neighbors think they're crazy. But in a lot of cases, I mean, we've had you know, a recent murder here in San Bruno where somebody was bludgeoned to death and stabbed, and so I don't know that we could have prevented that one either. But it's not always the weapon, but it's you know, there are dangerous people out there, and maybe if a tip line or getting information out to people about identifying potential risks in the community, maybe that will get us closer to that goal as well. So I think that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ken?
I just want to say I agree with the mayor. I think we need to do something. It's a start. I questioned 500 rounds. Where did that number come from? Seems like a lot. So I think we need to study that. I think the lost and stolen program is great. I've seen the buyback program has been very successful. Hundreds of guns have been taken off out of public use. I keep hearing about background checks. How, you know, I think there's an assumption that people feel safe because there are background checks, but you know, now we're seeing that the president's promoting you know, stronger background checks. So we need to learn a lot more, but I think we do need to, you know, take a stand and start. And I believe we should endorse the resolution by Mayor Lee, and we should really start studying this because, like the mayor said, we save one life from an illegal gun. I think we're ahead.
Anyone else? Irene?
Thank you. I have some questions along the line of Councilman Salazar as well. With the 500 rounds, if that's reported to our police station, is there going to be, or has anyone thought about a method of sharing that with everyone else? We're so close. I mean, we're across the street from Millbrae, South City. It doesn't seem like it would do much good if it's just us who knows about it. So that's, I think, how to share it, or if we share that kind of information, or if the other cities share it, that might be something to think about. The zoning and the how many gun stores and all that stuff, I think we do need to look at it. It's scary to think that there's a store with that people could access or have accessed illegally and stolen guns and what they can do with it. But the other concern I have that I didn't hear anyone mention was at-home dealers. Do we have any way of regulating people who deal guns from their homes? I know there's people who have antique collections and gun collections, but I don't know if we regulate that at all.
Yeah, so right now, gun dealers are not permitted in any zoning district in the city other than in the central business district.
Okay.
So that means they're not permitted in a residential district. So if somebody is selling guns from their home, that would not be a permitted use.
All right, that's another something that can be added to the tip line if you know somebody who's dealing with guns through their home. One of the other...
Irene, can I interject just to kind of add on to that? So, Mark, if somebody was a federally licensed gun dealer, they could legally sell a gun from their home, but not necessarily have a business license to do that. Is that accurate?
No, I think we're getting a couple of things confused. The business license is one thing. That business license doesn't really matter. That doesn't confer any right on anybody to engage in a business in a zoning district that's otherwise not permitted. So if you have a federal license to sell weapons and you're in the business of selling guns in San Bruno, you can't sell them from your home.
Okay. But would we know that?
Well, that's hard to say. Probably not unless somebody told us that. You know, we don't go around looking in everybody's window to see if they're selling guns in their home, out of their home. Okay. So it's not an activity that I think would come to our attention unless there were some crime that occurred or unless there were some report of that occurring to the police department or to our code enforcement.
I think that's an interesting point. Thank you.
Oh, okay, no problem. The other thing I would like us to either add to or think about when we are going to support the Senate and the Assembly state bills is it's great. It's something that we've all encountered. We have these wonderful laws. We have codes that we want everything to look great. We want things to happen, but we don't fund the enforcement of them. So I know there's over 300 federal laws regulating guns on the books, but I know for a fact that the funding to have the people regulate those laws has been cut over 50% in the last 8 years. So, you know, it's like we need to put our money where our mouth is kind of thing and encourage the funding of that enforcement. I agree with Ken and the mayor. We need to do something. I mean, it is an emotional subject, but I think we can study what has been done at other places successfully and come up with some things of our own.
Rico, anything? Anybody want to speak on this item? Yeah. Just state your name and your street, please. Thank you.
My name is James Mahan. I'm a San Bruno resident. I got married across the street in 1975. I've been around here for a while, and this is a very topic that I've been following for a while. I've been a member of a group called Legal Community Against Violence, arising out of the 101 California street shooting back in 1993, you're familiar with. And they have a wonderful source of information if you want to go on the website to get statistics on laws and what's going on. If you want to get updated. Oh, by the way, they changed their name last year. And it's stumbling over my mind. But if you Google Legal Community Against Violence, you can get this information. First point, I'll try to be brief, is I believe it's important to focus activities that will have an effect, because we have a tremendous opponent here that's well-financed and extremely well-organized, the Gun Owners of America, the National Rifle Association, that fight these things tooth and nail. So the only thing that gets through are very watered-down, weak, ineffective laws and regulations. For example, you're going to do away with hollow point bullets. That really isn't what's happening as far as really, I think, where people are being killed in the city. Sure, hollow point bullets are terrible things, but that's not what's killing people. Every day we face about 34 people dying in this country, the equivalent of the Virginia Tech massacre, day after day, and nobody cares, nobody says it, it's not on the news, you're not going to see helicopters and SWAT teams. That happens every day. And you mentioned the Sandy Hook, sure, that's terrible, but we do nothing about that. So the point being is, we should focus on resolutions that have a real effect, like the buying back the guns, et cetera. Some of these other resolutions, so the problem with it that I see is you pass them and really it doesn't affect the level of violence, and the NRA and the Gun Owners of America see. They pass laws. Laws don't protect you. You have to have the good guy with the gun to protect you. Remember, that's the argument? Okay, all right. The other point is nobody's mentioned money in this thing, really. The idea being is the effect of gun violence on us as taxpayers, on our society, where people not only are killed, but they're maimed, they're disabled for their lives, they're going to go on welfare, on assistance for the rest of their lives. We lose them as tax-paying citizens earning money. It's millions and millions of dollars we have to pay as taxpayers. So even if you're not emotionally involved in this thing, you're losing money because of this supposed right to own an AK-47. And that's something, I think, a piece of information we really got to get out to people to focus on that, saying, look, you know, you're supposedly going to have a right to have a gun. We're losing a ton of money every day as taxpayers, et cetera, because of this supposedly sacred right that we have to have guns in this country, et cetera. So I think that's just one important factor I think should be focused on. Okay, that's about it. I want to be brief, and thank you very much. I can go on and on and on, but I don't want to keep you guys here. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Ryan Mahoney, and I'm about a 14-year resident of San Bruno. And right now I feel like I'm about the loneliest guy in the room. I am pro 2A, and I wanted to address a few issues that were brought up. If anybody is an avid shooter, the purchase of 500 rounds is absolutely nothing in scale. I'm an avid shooter. I've been shooting for over 20 years. To purchase 500 rounds is like purchasing a single box of ammo for someone that spends time going to the range and shoots for several hours at a time. So number-wise, as far as the amount of rounds, that's nothing. Okay, you can buy a 525 round brick of 22 ammo that's this big. 500 rounds of 45 ACP takes up about this much space. So I go through 300 rounds in a weekend when I go shooting. So 500 rounds as a number being reported is really kind of silly. The 9mm, or not mine, sorry, the ban on hollow point ammo. Hollow point ammo is designed to stop, okay? If you know anything about ballistics, a round ball ammo is designed to penetrate. It will go through a person. 9mm ammo, which is the primary home defense round in hollow point, is designed to expand on impact and prevent over-penetration. So if you're in a close quarter environment, such as an apartment complex or whatnot, and somebody's in your house threatening to do you harm, you want hollow point ammo because it will penetrate the person, but not over-penetrate, go through walls into other people's apartments, causing more damage. So in my personal opinion, it's a silly idea for banning hollow point because it has higher lethality. It's designed to be a man-stopping round for personal protection. Nobody buys hollow point ammo in bulk. Most ammo that is bought in bulk is purchased for target practice and for training rounds. The price of a box of 9mm ammo, I just use 9mm example, it's the most common. A box of 20 rounds of 9mm hollow point runs you about $25, where a standard box of 50 9mm ball ammo runs you about $13. So that's where you get the idea of the number of 500 rounds plus the banning of hollow point. It's kind of silly. I'm an avid shooter. I've been shooting for over 20 years. I have never committed a crime. I don't plan to. So I see no reason why we should keep enacting legislation that keeps taking away the rights of the law-abiding citizen. All the problems we have are not gun violence problems, they're people violence. Guns are just the tools. As you just said, you know, somebody was bludgeoned and stabbed. What's the next step? Do we ban hammers and knives? Yes, it's easier to do more damage with a firearm than it is most other available tools, but that's all a gun is. A gun is a tool. It's neither good nor bad. It all depends on the person that's using it. And I just feel I had to come down here and say something because I hear a lot of emotional pleas, but emotion has nothing to do, should have nothing to do with what is right and what is wrong. Excuse me. But, don't jump on a bandwagon to ban the tool when it's the person that's the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Council? Michael?
Through the chair, I wanted to ask another question. So regarding the city's ability to limit who can own a gun, do we have any say in that? If somebody has been declared mentally incompetent, if somebody is an a gang member, for example, somebody's committed some level of crime that the federal government wouldn't consider, I guess if you're a convicted felon, you probably couldn't own a gun, but
Right.
Can we go beyond that?
So in general, I'll take a first stab at that, and then Neil can add some of his thoughts. The laws that restrict people's ability to possess guns exist at the state level, not at the local level. And so if the state says felons can't have a gun, then felons can't have a gun. The city can't say, well, I don't know, if you're convicted of a parking ticket, you can't have a gun. So that's the kind of law that the city wouldn't be able to pass. It's state law that determines if individuals who are mentally incompetent can't have guns. So all of those things in terms of who can possess are a function of state law.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And Neil, can you follow up on the last speaker's comments regarding the comments on the number of rounds or the logic around singling out hollow points?
So 500 rounds for an avid shooter. I mean, it's a lot of rounds, but if you're an avid shooter, you could go through 500 rounds over a period of time. I think it's if gun or the sale of ammunition was reported to law enforcement within 24 hours, and we knew John Smith is an avid target shooter, and we knew John Smith goes through, and we see that John Smith purchases 1,000 rounds of ammunition a month, that may not raise any red flags. If we see something come in that another individual who out of the blue purchases 500 rounds one day, a second day purchases another 500 rounds, there's something that may raise an issue. And again, as we progress, if that's the direction that you choose, we can do a little more research and learn a little more on that. In terms of the hollow point round, he is exactly, the speaker was exactly correct. The hollow point round is designed to do one thing, stop an individual.
And in certain cases, if somebody were to use one of those rounds for self-defense, it might actually be safer for that person to only cause injuries to the person they intend to shoot rather than the person behind them or the person in the next apartment.
You're correct.
Okay. Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
Following up on that question, is it more a function of the caliber of the bullet rather than
the shape of
the well, I mean, if we ban hollow points that are bigger, I think I've got the terminology right, bigger than the 9mm, then is that a better thing to do than just ban them totally, or a more effective thing to do?
I think we'd have to do a little more research because it's a combination of the round itself and the caliber of that round.
Okay, and then thinking about if somebody purchases 500 or plus rounds or whatever, if they pay cash for it, how are we going to know who it is?
The seller or the store that sells that ammunition is going to record that information, and then all the ordinance would do would be for the store that sells the ammunition to provide to the police department within 24 hours the purchaser's name of that ammunition.
And are we going to require a person to show their license? I mean, if somebody walks in and goes to Big Five and purchases 1,000 rounds of 9mm round point? No, the other one. Well, thank you. And they, I mean, they, you know, they buy all this stuff, they pay cash. I'm trying to figure out how it's going to actually physically work.
It would require the seller of that ammunition to record the purchaser's information.
Okay, and then what if they say, I don't want to do that? I mean, are we putting kind of a...
It has to be a penalty.
Yeah, are we putting a burden on the sellers? Maybe this is something that needs to be studied further. So, but thinking about it that way, the seller is confronted with somebody who's buying this ammunition. They pay cash for it, and then they say, "Oh no, I need your name and address." And they say it's John Smith on 100 Acacia, and walk away. And it's a false name, and it's not the right address. So I guess we need to keep working on it, is my question.
Rico?
I'll just go on that topic since that was last discussed. Obviously, we've already indicated that it can be ordered online. So there is no sure way of knowing exactly, and it's not always going to be recorded. There's also fake IDs. So the intent could be of the store owner to go ahead and take that information. How are we going to hold the dealer, the store dealer, that they will report that within a time frame? Do we have the resources that was brought up earlier? I think that one needs to be studied a little bit further than that, and about where we came up with the idea of 500. I do agree that whatever this council or the community wishes to do, it needs to make sense, and it needs to be able to be enforced, and we need to be able to actually achieve it. Too many times we make decisions a lot based on emotion, personal experiences, but in essence what it comes down to is making the right choices that are going to improve the situation and make things better than we're finding them today. I do agree, and it wasn't too long ago in this community, or maybe a little bit longer, that we and the prior council said 2 casinos in this town is enough, and they reviewed that. I'm okay with having staff look into, are we saying that 2 is suffice? I think we should look into the zoning aspect. I think this city and this community has looked at things like that before, and I think it would be good for us to review that again. Some of the ideas that we have from the buyback program that you have listed in here, I think, are some appropriate measures, and the security for the business and storage, liability insurance, the hearing, applying, all those things. I think those are some positive things that this community can do. I'd like to see what we can do on a local basis, do some more investigating on some of the other comments that the council has brought up, but I would be in favor of some of those aspects that have been brought forward.
All right.
Jim, I think the speaker wanted to speak again. Will you allow him to?
Yeah, make it quick, though. Thank you.
Just to answer her question that she asked as far as the purchasing of the ammo, California already has a state law that requires you to be 18 years old to buy rifle ammunition, provide ID for the purchase, and be 21 to buy handgun ammunition. So you cannot just go into a store and buy ammunition without presenting some kind of identification. You have to have it. For multiple caliber items, like there are rifles that will fire handgun ammo, you still have to be of the legal age to buy that particular caliber. So if you go into a store, any store in California, to buy handgun ammo, if it can be used in a handgun, you have to show ID and be 21 years of age. If it's a rifle caliber, which there are some that will not work in any type of handgun, you have to be at least 18 years of age. And then also, most people will not go to a local gun store to buy 500 rounds of ammo because it's too cost prohibitive. Most 500 round or larger purchases will be made online because it's cheaper to buy out of state. And we also go to the gun show because there's a company that does their own factory reloads they sell in bulk, cutting out the middleman, so it's cheaper to purchase that way. Most people will not go to a gun store to buy 500 rounds of factory ammo because it's just too expensive.
All right.
I just wanted to answer your questions.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I know you started and said you feel like one of the loneliest people in this room, but I want to thank you for coming down and giving us your insight and knowledge into this situation and the facts that you bring forward. So, thank you.
Maybe, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just going to attempt to summarize what I thought I heard.
Okay. Let's see how close you
Well,
are.
we'll see if I'm on target. So I think I've heard some general support for a resolution supporting the president's plan, the one that the Conference of Mayors suggested. Is that correct, or am I missing the boat on the first one already?
I think we're all generally in favor of what the president's proposing.
All right. Of course, we'll monitor the state legislation and get back to you on that. We'll let you know how that turns out. In terms of the permit system, I've heard some general support for that, but desire to have more information and study, specifically of the San Francisco request, that we ban hollow point ammunition and the 500 rounds. So is that correct?
Yeah, and I think it would be worthwhile to actually check with Mayor Lee's office and see, because I'm sure they just didn't pull it out of the air, what the reasoning was behind the two criteria there.
Right.
I think
Okay.
that's a good idea.
And then on the potential draft amendments to the zoning ordinance, I've heard, I think at least a majority indicating to look at those aspects, to do some further study, see what we can do. Are two gun shops that we have sufficient? If so, why? If not, why not? And as I indicated, that would ultimately wind its way to the Planning Commission first. But is there some general support for staff to look at that as part of the zoning code?
I think so.
And there is one business right now that's, or one location that's, I guess, permitted to be a gun dealer, but it's currently not operational.
That's right.
And so would any changes to the current zoning affect either of those three businesses, the two that are in operation and the one that's not? Or are we talking about just net new?
It's going to depend on how long the business that is currently not in operation, whether it stays out of operation. Our zoning code provides what's called a 6-month amortization period. So if a use is discontinued for upwards of 6 months after a change in zoning, then it's determined that the use can lapse so that there's no more right to operate a legal non-conforming use anymore.
Okay. Well, if we do decide to move forward on that, I'd like to know, I'd like to have some evidence that that we would be, what the expected benefit would be of limiting the gun store, especially in a economy where we don't want to have empty storefronts. If we decide absolutely no more gun stores, I'd like to know that it's going to have some positive benefit, and also anything else that we do that might impact the current businesses, that we do probe a little deeper into what the impact would be to them. If I know with the plastic bags, we decided we would charge the public a tax so that they could be compensated for tracking how many bags they were giving out. So if we're going to...
Be careful when you say tax.
A fee. Yeah, so, yeah, let's if we're going to go that route, then let's get all the data.
All right, and then I've heard some general support for looking at the voluntary programs like the buyback and the tip line. So we'll look at those things as well. Is there anything else that I've missed?
No, I think that's about it.
Thank you very much, and
All right,
thank you to members of the public who showed up to comment.
Good. Item number 11, reports of commissions, boards, and committees. There are none this evening. Comments from council members? No. There are none this evening. Closed session. Conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property. Mark, do I have to read all of the parcels individually?
No, you don't.
All right. All of the parcels as listed in the agenda. Agency negotiator, city manager, negotiating party, city of San Bruno and PG&E. Under negotiation, price and terms of payment. And this meeting is adjourned to the next city council meeting right here, March 12th, 2013.